Hello and welcome. My name is Trismegistus, and today we're going to be reading through and speculating about the latest Factorio Friday Facts. Friday Facts 410, Rocket Turret and Target Priorities. Posted by Clonan. Hello, we know you love to blow things up, and the space age expansion will be bringing ever more advanced and powerful ways of bearing arms against your enemies. Yep, we're finally getting some details about the combat stuff. Unfortunately, we do know what the main thing is already, but it's nice to get the details. Rocket Turret. The rocket turret does what it says. It shoots rockets. It's a 3x3 powerful long-range turret. It's unlocked on one of the 3 initial planets. It has a minimum range of 15 and a maximum range of 36, and that's improved by 10% for each quality level. And it shoots any type of rocket, including the atomic bomb. So next is a little video of it firing. It does have audio, so I will shut up the first time through to let you hear that. The caption just says graphics by Jerry Slaw, sound effects by Ian. Hopefully that wasn't too loud. It's difficult to tell on this. So I guess just to give a little bit of context on these points here, 3x3 is obviously bigger than the normal turrets, so they're all 2x2. However, the artillery system is 3x3, which is interesting. I don't know if that means we're going to get more 3x3 and other sized turrets. That would be nice to have, I think, to give more options about space, etc. So if it says it's unlocked on one of the 3 initial planets, then that would be Volcanus, Bulgora, or what we've been calling Bacchus, but we don't know the name of yet. I don't think that means Nauvis. I wouldn't take that as being one of the first 3 planets, and it's certainly not the final planet, Aquilo, as we believe it's called. So I thought just to give a bit more context, it might be worth popping up the Wikipedia entries for the turrets. The gun turret has a range of 18. It doesn't have a minimum range, it can shoot right up to itself, but that puts it ever so slightly overlapping with the missile turret. The laser turret then has a range of 24, so that's a significant overlap with the rocket turret. But again, it doesn't have a minimum range, so it can shoot right up to it itself. So the flamethrower turret has a minimum range of 6 and a maximum range of 30. Again, nice good overlap with the rocket turret. But it appears to have a longer range than all of them. So the maximum range is 36, which means there's a good distance above the flamethrower turret, for example, that it can attack targets, but the minimum range of 15 is really quite close. That would tend to explain the previous video we saw where the missile turrets didn't seem to be shooting at the giant asteroids. They were within its minimum range, and that's, I think, what I speculated at the time. Just to end that context off, the artillery turret then has a minimum range of 32, so that is within the range of the rocket turret, which is interesting. But obviously a huge maximum range. The automatic range is roughly half the manual range, so you can manually target 560 tiles away, and it will automatically target 224 tiles away. So we still have a significant shortfall in the distance that an artillery turret will clear out, and any of our other turrets will clear. So there is still that gap, which potentially opens the options up for maybe having another turret in there, maybe? Could be. And it says it shoots any type of rocket, including the atomic bomb. To give you a bit more context on that, if this has a minimum range of 15 and an atomic bomb has an area of effect size of 35, then any missile turret shooting an atomic bomb is going to blow itself up. So I can imagine some scenarios and usages where it is maybe a suicide weapon and you just chuck it in there, throw a bomb in and run away. But that would require something particularly dangerous to destroy, I would suggest. It's a very expensive way of using atomic bombs, given that you can just shoot them out of a handheld rocket launcher. They do obviously have a maximum range of 54, so as I say, a Spidertron, which for context, if you weren't aware, a Spidertron can shoot nuclear bombs. It can shoot any type of missile as well, and basically it does have a sort of almost half as much again. No, it's more than half as much again for the range on what the rocket turret has. So probably not a wise choice for general usage to be putting atomic bombs in rocket turrets. I guess the last thing just to have a little bit of context on is this improved 10% for each quality level. We already knew that turrets were going to get a range boost from quality, although I'm not 100% sure that we knew the exact amount of boost that we were getting, so if not, that's a nice little detail there. I assume it rounds it up, because obviously 10% of 36 is 3.6, which would give 39.6, so I presume it rounds that up to 40. but we'll have to see. It is very useful as an upgrade for space platforms, as laser and gun turrets alone start to struggle on larger asteroids. Each type of asteroid has resistances to different types of damage, but more on that another week. This was something that I think they mentioned on Discord about having different resistances to different types of damage, because someone basically asked the question of, well, what about lasers? Why don't we put lasers on the platform? The point was made that yes, they are effective against certain types of asteroid, but of course they're very power hungry, particularly they have a continuous drain, so they're probably not necessarily a good choice for platforms in a general sense. This obviously has a more sort of ammunition approach to it, so if you can manufacture the rockets, then you can lob them out. The minimum range is interesting because it tends to suggest that you would always need gun turrets or something like that to destroy the smaller asteroids. The other thing that this kind of confirms is that we are going to be able to place walls on platforms. My assumption is because walls are so cheap that that's actually fairly useful for a situation like this. This appears to be something akin to a harvesting, asteroid harvesting platform, that it's going out there and deliberately destroying asteroids, because it seems to be making a heck of a lot of ammunition. It has a lot of guns and stuff in a very small base. So that's my assumption, and that's why it's got these jutting out pieces in front. It could, of course, just simply be decorative, but my assumption is that the walls take damage before the platform itself. So if you have a wall on it, and it's got, say, 100 health, and something hits it and takes off 50 health, it'll do that to the wall and eat through all of the wall's health before it gets to the platform. And my assumption is a wall is going to be a lot cheaper than a platform. To make rocket turrets work nicely on space platforms, we needed to tweak the rocket ammo recipe a bit. To make rocket turrets work nicely on space platforms, we needed to tweak the rocket ammo recipe a bit by removing the electronic circuits from the recipe. This makes it much easier to set up rocket production on the platform where copper is quite scarce. If you've never made a rocket, they're kind of a thing that doesn't get used a great deal until people get Spidertrons, so if you've not got that far, you may not have seen them. But basically, a rocket recipe currently has the green circuits in it, the electronic circuit, and it's a explosive and a bit of iron. As we know, iron is kind of going to be really plentiful from asteroids. Now, the current explosives recipe, I say current because my recent speculation video, I'm speculating that maybe explosives are going to be in a different place and have a different recipe. But basically, the explosive recipe at the moment requires coal and sulfur. Sulfur, of course, being an oil product, and coal, of course, being just a mineable resource. It also requires water. Now, we know we're going to be able to get water from asteroid chunks. There's going to be a water asteroid chunk. We have seen sulfur being on platforms. We've not had confirmation that sulfur comes out of asteroids. We have seen carbon on the platforms, but we haven't seen coal. So this, to me, is like a subtle confirmation that we're going to get a carbon-based recipe for explosives, which to me, as I say, feels like, because that's what I think our next reveal is going to be, that explosives are trapped on, or only available on Bacchus, as we're calling it, that we're going to get perhaps a change to this recipe or an alternate version of it or something like that. So yeah, basically the point is that green circuits are now gone, so it's just explosives and iron, and if the point is that we are able to make those in significant quantities, that means we must have plenty of sulfur on the asteroids, otherwise that wouldn't actually be true. If we got just as much copper as we did sulfur, then you would still have that problem. The explosive rocket, by the way, simply involves adding extra explosives to that. So if we can make them in volume as well, which I guess this is implying we can as well, then that means we need even more explosives. So they must be quite easy to manufacture using asteroids. Turret target priorities and filtering. With more powerful turrets, which use precious ammunition, it leads to another problem. We don't really want to expend expensive rockets on small little asteroids that the gun or laser turrets can easily take care of. So we added the feature of turret target priorities, with an additional option to ignore things not in the list, which effectively makes it a whitelist filter. We can use this to focus fire on the larger asteroids, or even set our rocket turrets to ignore the small ones completely. And yes, so the point of doing that basically is that rockets are still expensive. They are more expensive than ammo, certainly a lot more expensive, and they use more novel ingredients. So for your most tiniest little asteroid bits, you probably want to be using your gun turrets if you've got, if you've got bullets, basically, or I guess laser turrets if you've got them, rather than your rocket turrets. And that extra range will help that, because you're able to target the bigger asteroid chunks further away, so your gun turrets aren't going to engage anyway, because you probably want to set your gun turrets on and engage everything. They kind of become what's called a close-in weapon system, or CWIS, which is the the phalanx, that turret thing that you've seen probably that's on ships and things like that. And it's a close-in weapon system. Basically, it shoots down missiles that get in too close, and the gun turrets are probably almost becoming like that. You don't want them really focusing on long-range stuff, but if there is long-range stuff, then you want them to have a pop at it and start firing at it, because your rocket turrets are then going to start ignoring it as it gets closer. And here we just see that in action. We've got the GUI for the rocket turret. They've obviously selected this one or another one. And the target priorities is just this new option down here, where we've got target priorities, and they're selecting which bits of asteroid that they want to destroy. The pop-up text just says, gives an explicit order in which targets will be picked if multiple are in range. And you've got a ignore unlisted targets option here. So what it is really, as it says, is a target priority. So it's saying if you've got the option of shooting at 5 different things, then these are the 3 things I want you to focus on. But if those things aren't there, then it will fire at the others. That little checkbox then, ignore unlisted targets, is how you tell it, no, don't fire at anything else. I only want you to shoot at these. What we can also see is that the filter is visible on the actual turret itself. So this is telling it, these are my priorities. Only shoot at these things with this turret, or prioritize these things with this turret. The other thing we are also seeing here is this. These appear to be new icons. Now, this spiky one on the end here, which is hidden under that pop-up there, but this spiky one here is the water ice that we have seen before. So I don't know if these are new icons for the asteroid chunks that we've seen before. That's one very distinct possibility. Another option, and it must be how it's done even though we're not being sort of shown it, is that if the idea is there are multiple sizes of asteroid, so you've got your giant asteroid, your large, your medium, your small, your tiny, if those are all different options and you want it to target giant asteroids first, as you probably would, then that has to have a different icon. So what I'm expecting we'll get a whole kind of smorgasbord of different icons for the different asteroid sizes. They might simply represent that by putting a number on them, so that the tiniest one is just no number and then 1, 2, 3, 4 as it gets bigger. I don't think they'll do that. I think because they'll want them to look visually different, they'll actually give us all different icons. This feature is not exclusive to the rocket turret, so there are some nice optimizations we can apply in other contexts. For instance, we found that setting laser turrets to prioritize spitters helped to reduce the amount of damage our defences would take in large biter attacks. We can also optimize ammo usage at wars by setting the rocket turrets to only shoot behemoth biters and spitters, as the rest are easily handled by the laser turrets. So I'm assuming this video shows the latter of these, because although I guess if it's a prioritization it would still fire on it. So maybe both of those effects have been applied here, but we do see these laser turrets shoot at everything, basically. I guess the point is that if you prioritize the spitters, then if there's an option between hitting a biter and a spitter, then you can get it to shoot at the spitter first, which is a good way of getting those eliminated first, because they do have this attack pattern. The biters, the actual biting biters rather than spitting biters, where they rush in at higher speed. And what that means is that your turrets will obviously focus on the nearest target, so they prioritise those. The spitters then line up at their maximum range and start lobbing the acid damage in. So by doing this, you can make sure your laser turrets target, because they have the longest range out of gun turrets and laser turrets, they target the spitters, and your other turrets can take out the biters. So I can see all sorts of use cases for this. I'm going to have a lot of fun playing with this, because the military stuff is kind of one of my the bits of the games I really enjoy, so I'm going to have a great deal of fun with this. It's interesting, it doesn't seem to do any damage. I don't know if they've just turned off the icons, but some of these do seem to get close enough that actually they would be able to chomp on the wall, so I'm not sure if they're just showing it to emphasise the point. It's like these guys spit at the laser turrets, and yet they take no damage apparently. So I don't know if they just turned off the damage icons. But yes, I'm going to have a lot of fun with this, especially if we get other turrets as well. That's going to be amazing. The artillery turret does not support the priorities/filters due to the way the optimized artillery shooting logic works. But this probably isn't a big problem because we should just kill everything anyway. There is another part of Space Age expansion where target filtering will play a crucial role, but that is for another week. What I would be wanting to filter out would be the worms. I don't really need the artillery to take out worms, just the nests. So that would actually be a useful thing to have, I must say. But, it's fine if it isn't. Turret circuit connection. For 2.0, we have added the ability to connect turrets to the circuit network. And these are the features we'll be able to use via the circuit network. We've got enable disable, set target priorities, set if unlisted targets are ignored, and read ammunition. We'll then just see these in this next diagram. This is a more clearer view of the target priorities with its ignore unlisted targets option. It's obviously connected to the circuit network and it's got the wire connection on it. That fits on really quite well, doesn't it? It's quite a nice place for it to go. These options then, of course, are the enable disable, set priority list, set ignore unlisted targets, and read ammunition. Okay, so that was a little confusing initially. The set priority list, this is like a checkbox which allows it to do it, basically. That allows you to send a signal, basically, that is, big biter, behemoth biter, small biter, medium worm, something like that. And therefore, by checking that box, it will fill in this list. So what you could be doing is dynamically saying, right, I want rocket turrets to focus on behemoths. If your walls then start taking a lot of damage, you say, actually, no, target a large as well, something like that. Set ignored unlisted targets is this option here, and it allows it to turn it off and on, I guess. But I think this is also then giving you an option for like a dynamic way of setting it. So ignoring unlisted target means, if you've got, say, behemoths and big biters as your priorities, and as I said before, it will still target the other ones if those aren't in range. And the ignore unlisted targets disables that, so they won't target medium and small splitters or biters or what have you if you've not put them in that target priority list. So having a drop down with a logic system on it allows you to configure that so that if some condition is met, and the one I'm thinking of specifically is the amount of ammunition. So if you've only got 4 rockets left in you, then you want to use them on the best targets, which would be the behemoth splitters, for example, or behemoth biters or what have you. So I think that's giving an additional logic option within that setting. I think that's what that's doing. And read ammunition is obviously just sending that to the signal network. This opens up a few nice opportunities. One useful thing is reading the turret contents to enable and disable a train stop bringing ammo. Before I just explain what's going on there, we've got a little note at the bottom that says the artillery turret has a circuit connection, but it only has the enable, disable, and ammo read. So that's just going back to that point that you can't do the filtering and what have you with artillery turrets, but what you can still do is hook it up to the circuit network. This is a very simple example of so this is just a nice example of using that. We've got an artillery turret and we've got one of the rocket turrets hooked up because we have inserters taking the ammo elsewhere. So this basically will turn up when this station gets switched on, I would guess, and it's switched on with a very simple Boolean type check where this is probably set to anything less than 10 or something like that. And so if either the artillery or this turret run out of ammo, then it will send a train, basically. Obviously that's a bit of a guess on what the actual logic is, but it's going to be something along those lines. So yeah, just a nice simple little defensive installation. Conclusion. Researching the rocket turret is a big milestone in the space age journey. It unlocks more options for platform and factory survival and gives you new logistic dilemmas to solve. While the rocket turret is exclusive to space age, the target priorities and circuit connection will be available for all to enjoy with the 2.0 update. It is also not a coincidence that the turret has similarities with the head of a Spidertron. You could almost expect the space age recipe of Spidertrons to be a rocket turret plus 4 exoskeletons. As always, fire a salvo of your thoughts to the usual places. Just to give a bit of context, that was already confirmed on the Discord, so if you're not on the Discord, then you wouldn't have been aware of that. Well, I think it might have been published on the Reddit as well, but basically that's not been officially confirmed, but it was suggested that perhaps a Spidertron is now basically a rocket turret with a bunch of exoskeleton legs on it. As always, fire a salvo of your thoughts to the usual places. It's a nice confirmation that this is coming to 2.0 in the sense of not the rocket turret, but the circuit networks and all that sort of stuff. So if you've not got the expansion, you still get to play with all the lovely circuit networks and all the logistics challenges you can create for yourself there. So that's a nice little bonus. Initial overall reaction, awesome, basically. So we'd obviously already seen the rocket turret well, it wasn't really even a teaser, it was just sat there on that video of the platform. So I wouldn't really even say it was a tease as such as an early reveal. So we knew that the rocket turret was coming. I think it looks awesome. I think I said that at the time, so I think it looks really, really good. The fact that it's a Spidertron head is really cool. That's a really nice way of sort of tying it into that later technology. It does look, shall we say, slightly better, I think, in this. I think it's because it's sort of more beaten up. If you can see the dents on it and stuff like that, it does feel more like a turret. But yeah, I think that's really, really, really nice addition. And it's good to have the stats then on its minimum range and stuff. It's nice to have another turret that has a significant minimum range. It creates that requirement for defense in depth, basically. So I'm sure the easiest optimal solution will remain, flamer turrets. But for people like me who like to have that multiple system defensive line, nice walls. If you've seen my videos where I've been designing them, I really have a lot of fun designing defensive installations. And so to have an extra turret there, and I've mentioned before, and I said this in my recent speculation video on science, I think we might be getting a railgun as well, and certainly one other turret. It's really nice that there's a confirmation on a different type of turret that operates differently, has different ranges, and we can optimize differently. And the other thing, of course, is this ability to connect it to the circuit network and control it, being able to control what gun does what, and you could even do things around ammo selection and things like that. Potentially having on some really critical installation the ability to fire a nuke, and especially if we are getting some kind of super biter or something like that, the ability to just fire a nuke and it's a last ditch, got to kill this enemy, otherwise I'm toast. Solution would be really cool, and to be able to then control that with a circuit network where it says, right, if this happens, then there's no ammo in the base and there's a signal of 100 behemoths on the way, or this super bite or what have you, and it fires off a nuclear bomb, and it's a last ditch thing, kills itself in the act, and then obviously your bots may come in and rebuild it all. But that seems like a really cool kind of feature to have. I don't think it's really practical or sensible, but it's going to be quite fun to set things like that up. So yeah, really happy with these changes. I sort of covered it during the video, but I guess one of the other points is around platforms. As I said in the main record, we've got this yellowy asteroid here. That's got to have sulfur in it, hasn't it? I mean, it's either got to be uranium or sulfur. It could be just the carbon one, but bright yellow like that has got to be sulfur. I wouldn't be therefore surprised if maybe they've tweaked the carbon asteroid recipe so that it gives us sulfur, maybe. But certainly, it's nice to see these new icons. Before they were just sort of single blob chunks, where these are starting to look like structured things. As I said during the thing, that to me suggests that maybe each of the different asteroid sizes will have a different icon, and that this is also a very different shape. We haven't actually seen any asteroids flying around like that, so maybe these are just generic ones and they're not actually shaped like that. But you could easily see that breaking into three pieces, couldn't you? So it starts off as a big one and breaks into three medium ones, and those are the bits that come off it. So it all sort of starts to tie up to me. It's also interesting that this has gone very orange. What we saw before was like a predominantly irony type colour one with a bit of orange on it. To me, this actually looks like, it doesn't look like the blue here is iron as such. It looks like it's probably more verdigris, which is what you get when you get copper rusting, basically. So I'm wondering if actually this is a pure copper asteroid rather than a sort of iron and copper combined asteroid. But you never know. It might just be how they've shown it. It could be this orange is just rust. So it's the other way around, that this is an iron asteroid with rust on it, effectively, rather than a copper asteroid with verdigris. It's the problem of having iron and copper and them having sort of similar colour schemes. Rusted iron looks like copper and rusted verdigris looks a bit like iron. So you know. So I guess the other thing they've teased that they have mentioned that it's worth just doing a little bit of speculation on again is this point about the resistances of asteroids. So each size of asteroid has resistances to different types of damage, but more on that next week. I don't think we will. Obviously, the types of damage at the moment are things like acid and poison, and which, if that's what we're sticking with, wackily, we're going to be able to use acid and poison in space. We did see those, dead biter carcasses on the platform. So maybe there is some kind of poison type capsule delivery thing that we could do. One of my wish lists, I want to do another speculation video on the military stuff. So one of my wish list things on that was going to be like a capsule thrower, an automated capsule thrower. So it would be quite interesting if we do get like a poison capsule throwing or slowdown throwing system, as it were, of some description, and you can use that on a platform, and it's quite a way of defending the platform if biters somehow land on it. We've kind of already, it's got to be something else as well, is the thing I would say. Maybe it's what's coming is the detail of like the levels of resistance different asteroids have, and that's what we're going to get details on. But we already know that lasers and rockets and gun turrets and delivering different types of damage, and we already know all that. We know that they've got different resistances. So I say maybe it's the detail of that, but it feels like what that means is there's going to be a new kind of resistance. What could that be? So as I say, it could be an explosive resistance. They're going to tweak it in that way, or it could be that asteroids will have acid resistance, or I say my theory is that we're going to get a railgun, and that will count as a different type of damage. I think that may be super long range. It's sort of effectively almost could be described as being the space platform version of artillery, and that you shoot out these massive asteroids a long way away because they take so much damage to destroy. Even if you have all of these rocket turrets and gun turrets like this, you can't actually destroy them. We did see a massive asteroid hitting a space platform, even though it had quite a lot of rocket turrets on it. So I think that might be an extra thing to it. It also makes me wonder if this is another sort of cheeky way of adding in like a need for quality. By having high quality gun turrets, which we know do at the very least damage at greater distance, and maybe quality ammunition. You never know. You might want to do a quality rocket and just keep that in back. You got to think we've now got a way of restricting what turrets fire at. So if there is this gigantic asteroid and you want to lob like 5 explosive rockets at it in order to destroy it, or 5 level 5 quality explosive rockets at it, because they're only once in a blue moon, and it gives you some exclusive resource that you really, really want, but you don't want that being wasted on any other rockets. So you put it in your target priority list, you put it in just one rocket turret, and it fires on it when it appears, type of thing. So that's the type of thing I think we've got to think about. And I do wonder if maybe, especially if that was a high quality rocket turret, it could start shooting at it at a lot longer range, basically. So I do wonder if this is another way of getting us to do a bit more quality as well. I'm probably reading way, way, way too much into this one, but the shoots any type of rockets, I think is just because, it makes it clear that it's the atomic bomb as well. But it's interesting, it says any type of rocket. We've only got 3. We've got rockets, explosive rockets, and atomic bombs. So why not just list them? Why not just say shoots rockets, explosive rockets, and atomic bombs? Why say any type of rocket? Well, maybe we're getting a new type of rocket. Maybe we're getting poison rockets or acid rockets or something like that. And maybe that's what this point about the resistances is, that acid is a good way of destroying some types of asteroid, and you do that with an acid rocket, maybe. I don't know. It's just interesting way of phrasing it. And I say I'm probably reading way too much into that one. It does just say one of the 3 initial planets. Given we've seen Vulcanus, given we've seen Fulgora, and there's one whose name we don't know, who formerly called Bacchus. It's this thing I've mentioned before. When I do these speculations, I kind of look out for the weird phrasings or interesting phrasings. Why wouldn't you just type, if it was Vulcanus, why wouldn't you just say unlocked on Vulcanus? That to me suggests it's not unlocked on Vulcanus. Do you know what I mean? Because we know about that planet, revealing that there is going to be a military system unlocked on it. that wouldn't be a massive surprise. Why not? Why bother not revealing that? Now, it could be that they've not worked out where it's going to be unlocked, but to me, that suggests this is locked to the Bacchus planet, basically. And I'm going to just plug my video. I did some more speculation about the science, and I was mentioning on that I think explosives are tied to Bacchus. I won't repeat all of that, but basically I think that's part of it. I think military systems, even if it's not explosives, as I'm guessing, will be tied to this Bacchus planet, and the rocket turret is one of those, and that then Spidertron actually, because it requires things that have been locked to other planets, Fulgora being the personal equipment is my guess, because it requires those two at least, that means it's somewhere else, or it's just a generic endgame research for Spidertron. And I'd say that kind of feels like it's confirming at least the pattern that I'm going for, if not the specifics. So I guess the big tease, the big thing, although I don't actually know what to suggest on it, is this part here where it says there is another part of space age expansion where target filtering will play a crucial role, but that is for another week. So what could that be? I guess that could be that there is a particular type of enemy that you need to take out first. We've already seen Mr. Gribblyhead, the weird alien with the big brain and the drippy tentacles, etc., etc. We've already seen him. I have theorized several times about what this enemy might be. One of the theories I had was that it was a shield generator, that this thing here is some psychic, power. It's a big brain with big veins on it. Can it generate a force field that protects things? And therefore, you might want to prioritize that. In fact, you would want to prioritize it because it could be protecting all of the biters. They could have some special code in the future where they're told to stick close to these things, and that if they're within a certain range, they're protected from attacks. And so what you want to do is take this guy out first so that then you can destroy all the other biters. Otherwise, they'll eat all of your stuff. So having the ability to say, right, prioritize him, and he's damageable once you do a certain amount of damage to his shield. Maybe it's a regenerating thing. It has a health bar, and then he takes, maybe he's like a glass cannon. He takes a couple of hits and he's gone, and then you can shoot all the other biters with impunity. So that's one possible, and it could be more of a conceptual shield. It's not necessarily like a bubble or something, but it could be that any biters close to him are like massively buffed for protection. That could be one thing. It could also be another type of enemy. Doesn't necessarily have to be Mr. Tentacles here. We could envisage maybe that there are going to be super tough rock carapace biters on Volcanus. For Gora, I think we had confirmation that there aren't any biters there. There would be some kind of other enemy in my speculation video. I'm going to plug that again, I'm afraid. But I thought, maybe that those white spots that we saw on the scrap patches could be some kind of turret, and therefore you would have some kind of priority, thing that you would need to do there. I think that one's a bit tenuous. I don't think it'll be that. The other one, of course, is that we're getting a whole range of new biters. They're all going to have different resistances, and you're going to want to tell rocket turrets to target the ones that have explosive, low explosive resistance, and your laser turrets ones that have low, I can't remember what it calls it, but laser light, resistance, and your flamer turrets would have to be targeting a different type of thing, and that there'll be a circumstance where this swarm attack that they do is like a drop in the ocean of what could possibly happen on Bacchus, for example, or something like that, where suddenly you have a massive wave of biters come in. I don't actually think it'd be that, because I think that would have horrible performance implications, but you could imagine some system where the end game planet, the big challenge is that you unlock a thing, you research a thing, you discover a thing, it opens up, and suddenly a swarm of biters come out, and you need to control how you're dealing with those biters, and until you blow that thing up, it just keeps sending waves and waves of biters. It becomes heavy wave defense, and you need to be able to prioritize targets with your different turrets. That could be one thing. I don't think it'll be that again. I think this is hinting at something completely different. I don't think necessarily it's combat related as such. No, that's probably a bad way of phrasing it. I'm wondering if basically, we've had this hint of aliens, not hint, we've had this alien planet covered in alien structures, basically. Could it be that there are aliens still in this system, and that what we want to do with our target prioritizing is not shoot the aliens, basically, because they are useful in some way, or something like that. The other thing on thematically similar to that is maybe there could be a biter taming mechanic, that we will have a situation where Bacchus allows us to farm biters as a biological resource, and that they're tame biters, but your rocket systems don't necessarily recognize them as tame, and they'll just shoot them unless you set a filter on it. Could be something like that. Again, I'm sort of more erring towards the side of there is something, and it could be a spaceship, it could be an actual alien entity, it could be some structure that the aliens build. There's all sorts of possibilities, but it could be something that you're going to want to either defend or protect or not shoot when you're firing things out. Particularly if you imagine quite a lot of the later technologies in the tree have explosive effect, in the sense of a cluster effect rather. So if you're firing out an explosive rocket or a cluster grenade, if you throw in one of them somehow, it damages stuff in an area. And so if you've got a friendly alien that's huddled in, surrounded by biters, you want to kill off the biters, but you don't want to kill him. So you need to control where it's from. And then, flamer turret is similar. You don't want it lobbing out just loads and loads of flaming fuel everywhere, because it could kill something you don't want to kill. Could be something like that. So yeah, it's interesting though. I can't really think of. It describes it as target filtering. So they're obviously seen as targets by turrets. But why you would have something that you don't want to target, I don't know. And if it is targeting something specific, then that would be more probably the most logical solution. But as you know, I always like to go mad on these, so. I hope you enjoyed today's Friday Facts video and might consider coming back for another one. If you want to chat about the latest Factorio Friday Facts, you can find me live streaming Factorio every weekend over my Twitch channel, @Trismegistus. Thanks for watching. Cheers.